We still need to figure something out, man. I guess we could go back to the other one and do it that way. Do it to it.
The intro song?
Yeah,
Yeah. I always like that song.
it's a good song. It's not a bad song. It's a
You are listening to the Guns for Everyone podcast. This is the first day of the rest of your life and the first day of the manned mission to Mars in the 21st century.
well, we're just going back to the moon.
Yeah, but it's part of the overall mission, right?
You think so?
Yeah, they have to send them, make sure they can do a lap. And then after they do a lap, they're like, okay, then we'll land somebody on there. Then we'll build a moon base.
So yeah, but that's still just the moon.
Yeah.
We'll never go to Mars.
Oh, did I say Mars?
Yeah,
Oh.
I thought I heard you say Mars.
Oh, we'll go to Mars. Yeah, we'll go to Mars for sure.
No,
Yeah.
I think
Why
they'll.
not?
Oh, maybe, but I think they'll figure out that it's just whatever ambitions they have is super fucking expensive.
Well, like what benefit did we acquire from going to the South Pole?
Of the moon.
No, of the Earth.
Well,
And
there's a lot of interesting creatures down there that kind of let us know where we came from. For you and I, benefit, none. For science, a fuck ton.
yeah, I think we could have figured that stuff out without building a base at the South Pole.
No, there's a lot of shit that we found out because of the South Pole. Like
All the
bacteria
X-Files
can
are
live
down there.
under ice. Now we know bacteria can live under ice, dude.
We can't help ourselves. We have to go to Mars. There's no question that our fucked up brains are going to tell us that if it's there, we have to try to get there. It's
I
like
think
when you're driving and you're like, no, we got to get there. We got to get there. Like, why? We don't have to get there.
I think there's not enough geopolitical pressure to get to Mars.
Oh, there will be.
I don't think if the Chinese said we're gonna make it to Mars, then for sure Elon will be like, nah, we
No,
are.
the Iranians are going to say we've got a Mars program. And the new Ayatollah is going to be like, we'll be there in 5 years with or without the Americans, and we'll definitely be there. Or
Correct.
at least we'll blow up their space program before they can make it happen.
I don't think we have enough geopolitical motivation to fucking make it there.
We don't need that. We got Elon Musk.
We got Elon motherfucking Musk.
Speaking of crazy people, Kanye West released a new video today, which was awesome.
Awesome in a
Well, there were no people running around in white hoods, if that's what you're looking for.
or was it really awesome? Like
I mean,
actually,
I liked it. I thought it was awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
So speaking of pioneers,
Pioneers.
we're going to talk about Colonel Jeff Cooper
Jeff Cooper.
today.
Who's
Mostly
Jeff
because
Cooper?
I sat and listened to like an hour and a half of his original video content from Gunsight. And a
Who's
couple
Jeff
of things.
Cooper? Tell people who Jeff Cooper is.
He was a colonel. I know that. Wasn't he founder of Gunsight?
Yeah, he was the original owner, founder of Gunsight. Yes.
Gunsight Pistol Academy, or well, I think it was originally Gunsight Pistol Academy, and then I think then it became just Gunsight. And he was a Marine Corps veteran, and he strove to modernize the use of firearms by law enforcement and civilians, trying to take what he had learned, I think, as a Marine, and also modern weapons. Because at his time, the use of an automatic pistol was a modern weapon for police forces. Civilians, I mean, there was no uniformity. There were no Glocks when Cooper started Gunsight, and he tried to revolutionize the concept of training for defensive and offensive use of firearms, pistols, rifles, shotguns, uh, in a way to catch up with the modern world. So, um, and a lot of the things that he taught and revolutionized were taught for a very long time. Some of them were taught way longer than they should have been taught because of appeal to authority.
Yeah.
Jeff Cooper got published a lot in magazines and videos, and he became sort of like gun Jesus. Um, and a lot of people just took everything he said as gospel, even as modern technology changed, modern data changed. Humans didn't change, people didn't change, but a lot of the things about fighting with a handgun changed. And so there's things to talk about where he really made a positive impact, and there's a lot to talk about how we've moved on, or we should have moved on from what he taught. What do you want to add? What did I mess up?
No, I think that was it.
So one of his biggest attempts to make an impact in firearms was developing the idea of the scout rifle. Uh, and his idea was, create a rifle that kind of do anything and do everything. And he had very strict ideas about how this rifle should be set up. Um, and by the time he finished his concept and really got the message out, the technology and the market had changed, and the rifle was no longer. Uh, Nobody would take it seriously anymore, according to his original requirements of the rifle. But I think that kind of ignores the idea of what he was trying to do, which was help develop the concept of what does a rifle typically need to do, and how could you set up a rifle to serve all of those purposes, which I think is what the modern AR-15 really does, especially with how modular it is and how many things you can change on it, and it's still just the same design. um, and so he got a lot of shit for a failed concept, but I don't really think it was a failed concept. I think he was very, very early, and there was no way he was going to catch up. So
Well, it's I always get, I don't know, mad for the humans. I feel like a one of my fellow white liberals who's like, I want to be offended for someone
yeah.
when when I hear the shit talk, because I see this a lot in videos, and you go to the comments, uh,
Hmm.
as one does, and you spend time in the comments. People are like, "You should have done this." It's like, I'm waiting for your video.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for yours. So like when you say failed, or when people said it, you didn't say it, but when
Yeah.
humans say it's a failed concept, like, I where's your drawing? Where's your pen?
Yeah.
Where's your contribution to all this shit?
Yeah. And where's your scout rifle? Did you buy one? Because that means you bought into it.
Yeah.
And if you didn't buy one, that means you weren't harmed by the idea. So why are you crying?
There's actually a lot of people that still like the scout rifle.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people build out their rifle with the idea, especially people who kind of have one rifle that they're gonna, they're not gonna set aside a bunch of money to buy a bunch of dumb stuff, a bunch of rifles for a bunch of different reasons. They're just gonna buy one rifle. The idea is, how do I make that rifle do everything that I want it to do?
Yeah.
So the concept is kind of inherent in most people's approach to a modern semi-automatic rifle. Um,
I
Now,
actually like it. I just sold one,
what did you sell?
the scout rifle.
Like an actual M1?
No, no,
Uh,
no, no. It was a Savage, but it
oh,
was the
same idea.
same idea.
Yeah.
It was very similar. Kind of hurts my feelings that I sold it, but
um,
it was the Savage is basically modeled after with the magazine and all that.
Mhm.
It was essentially the same. It was I
Yeah,
think it was this one, to be honest with you, the 110 Scout rifle.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
And the idea basically is an idea that could as a rifle that could take down a large animal, um, and could be light enough to be carried anywhere, to have a rudimentary sighting system, magnified sighting system that didn't require a real close up eye relief, and had a magazine or held several rounds internally rather than two or three. Uh, it was durable, and was in a caliber that could take one of these larger animals like a 308 or 30-06 or something like that. However, um, from what I understand, Mr. Cooper spent a lot of his free time, hunting in Africa. And so the idea of a rifle that could take down a large animal like a water buffalo is a lot different than a rifle that could take down a deer in United States. Like, we don't typically run into full size buffalo in the brush. So his framing of what was useful was kind of dependent on, well, you could take this rifle anywhere in the world. Like, well, yeah, but we don't. That's not what you do with a rifle. You don't take it anywhere in the world. You take it to the places that you go. Um, and so again, I'm not saying he did a bad thing. I'm just saying, like, he's a pioneer, and he it's like working out the bugs in a system, and you take the first phase of an idea or a product or something like that. It's going to suck, but it has to get out there. Otherwise, there's no chance for people to test it and improve on it. So,
And one of the things that is, speaking of improvement, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he gets credited a lot with creating the 4 basic from safety rules, and I from what I know, he didn't create them, he just kinda modernized them. There's a lot of rules that stem back to, England and to the king and the crown. So there's a lot of rules that we use today that you can trace back to the crown, but he kinda modernized them, and he made them sound the way we know them now. Now, there's a lot of people who, if you talk to, hey, what's up, Joseph? You talk to Clint Smith. A lot of people who've talked to Clint Smith, they could talk about how the rules were bastardized from gun sites. Gun sites kind of updated them, but then people bastardized the way we observed the rules. They were never really intended to be used at the range for training, all that stuff. I don't know which video you watched, but if you watch, there's one video that he has, and he's in a classroom, and it's like they're recording a class,
mhm.
the one that I watched. But you see him talking about the rules, and at the same time, he's basically breaking all the fucking rules.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And then in this video, Lewis Auerbach is talking about the process of loading and unloading the gun, and violates some of those rules as well. And Auerbach is considered, one of the other, original firearm training greats. Uh, and I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying, like, if you if we put these people on the pedestal instead of evaluating what they were teaching and the value of what they were teaching, then we are forced to ignore their failures so that we can keep them on the pedestal.
Correct. And that we've talked about this before, but that's where we come in, and we get this from IDS, intuitive defensive shooting, combat focused shooting, Pincus. This idea of respectful irreverence is like, you can still admire what Jeff Cooper contributed to or whoever, insert name here, contributed to whatever, and still acknowledge they sucked.
Hmm.
It's or still acknowledge that what they said was stupid. Weaver, Tuller, like whatever, again, whatever name you want to add there, Edgar, Isaac, but there's still value to the contribution. Very rarely do we see humans who are like, that's a fucking waste of breath. That motherfucker should have never existed. But
Voda.
Sure. I fucking forgot that he existed. Yeah, for sure, there's, the dude from Dust, like, for sure, there's a lot of humans who, like, they're famous for no fucking reason, fucking hot garbage. But most of these humans, contributed at their time, and even if it was wrong even for that time, there's still a value to it, and I think that's where a lot of people don't understand, like, I can talk shit about people who I admire.
Mhm.
It's allowed, in fact, encouraged to a certain degree, um, so
Well, it's anti-science not to. And in this house, we believe in science.
yeah.
But the idea that,
Oh,
that
you don't get to see the comments in do you see the comments from Instagram?
no, I'm only seeing them from
Oh,
YouTube at the moment. Yeah.
here you go. Here you
Trump
go.
till infinity.
The
Oh,
sugar
it's too bad
is
Instagram doesn't have that feature of that geolocation, that
geolocation.
Twitter has. So I'm sure that's coming from Pakistan or something.
It does
Um,
have geo no, that you can. I think it's
really?
trickier, but yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah,
Um, yeah. Uh, so now I lost my train of thought. I was talking. Oh, it's anti-science is like there should be no even uh, gravity is not above scientific scrutiny. Like as far as we know, as far as most humans know, the question of gravity is a settled question, except it's definitely not. Um, and we always, if our goal here is to use firearms to save lives, we should never settle for like, oh, this is the way something is because it's been taught this way, because this person taught it, because it was based on this data. All of that stuff is subject to challenge. Um, you know, it is absolutely true that in many ways revolvers were more likely to be reliable than semi-automatic handguns decades ago.
yeah,
Now that isn't really necessarily true, and so something that was absolutely true at the time and should be strongly considered should also be challenged as technology changes, as information changes. Uh, so yeah, we definitely have to be respectfully irreverent, not put anybody on a pedestal. One of my favorite things about this video that I watched of Mr. Jeff Cooper was that he apparently invented a Royal Palooza. For those of you who don't know what a Royal Palooza is, it is a gathering of the greatest gunslingers in the world,
ever.
um, once a year in the middle of nowhere to showcase their skills with firearms in totally realistic defensive um, circumstances. So actually, what it is just an excuse to drink and shoot each other with airsoft guns. But the video that I watched at the beginning of it, uh, Mr. Cooper is walking around the gun site property, and these little targets are popping out from behind the trees, and he's quick draw shooting them. It's really entertaining. He's like skulking around like he's hunting like Elmer Fudd, like he's hunting rabbits. Uh,
I think this is where humans need to I genuinely believe this. Nobody will because this is where the science aspect of all of this comes from, but history and all that shit. And when gun websites jumps on, he can kind of elaborate on this a little bit more. But once you start going back and you start watching these videos, and you're like, "Holy shit, that's where that comes from." You
mhm.
start to understand how most of it is hot garbage, and it was shit that worked in a very controlled environment, and they just ran with it because it worked. Not because it was proven, not because it was tested, not because it was proven in a very isolated environment, and there was nothing to disprove them. There's no video, there's nothing like that. Now we have video, and we can disprove shit pretty fucking quick. Neuroscience, our understanding of neuroscience is fucking crazy compared to in the 60s and the 70s. So I genuinely believe that a lot of humans need to do that. Um, Going back to history and watching this stuff to fully understand why people say dumb shit.
Well,
Um,
one of the a good example of that from this Jeff Cooper video was him talking about when you put your finger on the trigger, and he talks about flash sight picture,
Mhm.
um, which I'm not certain about this, but I think that he came up with that concept of the flash sight picture and talking about getting on that trigger as soon as possible. And he mentioned in the video that that the shot doesn't need to be as precise as if you're bullseye shooting. It just needs to be, once that sight is in the target area, pressing the trigger, the bullet will go where you want it to go. And I've found that with the human attention and human performance, generally speaking, the longer it takes somebody to take a shot, the less likely they are to get their hit. um,
Ain't that
and
crazy?
so, what's that?
Ain't that crazy?
It is crazy, although it does make sense if you look at it from the perspective of how the brain operates,
For sure.
how the brain manages the world around it with the autonomic, not the autonomic, the automated parts of the motor functioning versus the prefrontal cortex, and how that stuff interacts. It made sense. I'm not an expert on this. It's just what I understand makes sense in that context. However, one of the things that he talks about with using revolvers is the idea that because the trigger press is longer and heavier on a revolver, you need to start that trigger press earlier, meaning as the gun is coming up. So you've drawn it from the holster, you've brought your hands together in what he called slap,
Yeah.
and as the gun's coming up, you're already pressing the trigger so that when you get to your flash sight picture, you are at the breaking point of the trigger, which is fine on the range. That'll totally work. You
On
could
the
shoot
range.
the dirt by accident, nobody's going to get hurt. And everybody's going to laugh and say, oh, you're trying to cheat. You're getting on there too soon. But in the context of human reaction to threatening stimulus, that is a horrible idea.
Horrendous, dude.
so, um, so
I'm
yeah.
surprised not maybe because there was not enough gunfights back then, but I'm surprised there wasn't more humans accidentally dying or getting shot accidentally. Maybe
Well,
that just wasn't reported.
we do know that accidental injuries with firearms have steadily declined since record keeping on that really started. Um, and I think most like the sharpest decline starts around the 60s and starts moving down. And I think it continues to decline. I'm not certain about that. Uh, but I don't know what to credit that with. I've seen
Right.
the NRA credited with that, and that very well could be true. I don't think putting your finger on the trigger as the gun is coming up is helping with that, though. Um, that's something I've never actually heard anybody teach before.
Start pressing the
So,
and when you say up, we have to remember this is the '60s.
yeah,
This is the '70s, so they were still doing the urinal stand,
yeah,
what they would call the low ready.
yeah,
When you're talking about up, like, you're at a low ready, and you're pressing the trigger as you're coming up to a shooting position.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Um, and that is definitely something. If I've been doing this a long time, 20 years, educating myself and others around firearms. I have never heard that before.
Yeah,
I
mhm,
have never heard anybody say that that's
correct.
what you should do, which means that sacred teacher, that Buddha of firearms training, that part definitely got left behind.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, nobody talks about that, but he taught it just as clearly as he taught everything else, at least within the context of that training video series.
Yeah. I wonder if I guess everything else is the ambiguity of everything else, whether it's correct or not. Like, there's no telling.
Hmm.
That one, I think enough people are like, "Yeah, I think this is bullshit," because it even sounds incredibly fucking batshit crazy. It sounds absurd.
Yeah.
The
Well,
rules don't sound absurd.
the push pull thing is kind of interesting because that's still taught by, I would say, more old school. or people who have not kept up with modern technique. But he was a big proponent of the push pull, and we understand, grip is a dynamic thing. It's not just hold the gun. There's more to it than that. Um, but push pull, the way he taught it, only really makes sense in the Weaver stance, where you're extending your shooting arm against the tension of your support arm, which is bent, and you're creating this weird force, I guess. Um, I will tell you that he said something that had never occurred to me before, and I think not only was correct, but I think the reason why it was correct was dead on. He talked about how people like to put their support hand trigger finger or support hand index finger
On the
over
trigger.
the trigger guard,
Yeah.
and the reason I've always told people to do that is because as your hand starts to tighten down, you're naturally going to put force on the front of the trigger guard, and you're going to impart a lateral force on the gun. But his point was that that's a bad place to try to get leverage to control recoil. I'm like, yeah, I think that's actually true. Uh, so I learned something that I
So
hadn't really thought of before.
you've taught people to place it on the trigger guard?
No, I've taught people to stop doing that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. I wanna
actually,
answer a question from Instagram really quick. Are you hosting another defensive rifle pistol class soon? And the answer is, yeah, it's right behind Isaac's board. If you leave it there, let me make you big.
zoom in
Let me zoom you in. Boom. There we go. Defensive handgun, May 2nd.
May 2nd. I
May
made
s
a mistake. So if anybody's watching this and you're signed up for the concealed carry class on May 2nd, I need to send out an email. I thought I had unpublished that class, but apparently I didn't, and it sold out. So
for May 2nd?
for the concealed carry class on May 2nd, um, I'm moving that class to May 17th.
Bong, bong. Oh, the other thing is you still have the ticket for carbine for
Oh,
on the second class?
I do.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
snap!
somebody's like, "What the fuck does this mean?" I was like, "Oh, that's if you're gonna take both classes."
I thought I deleted that.
Well, they just showed me that.
I freaking hate the internet so much. Um, like we're always complaining that people don't read, but I make just as many mistakes as your average
I don't.
sign up does. So
I don't.
yeah, you don't.
Fucking flawless.
You want to hear about a funny mistake that I made?
Oh, what's that?
I was flying for work, and I come back to the hotel on Thursday, and my key doesn't work. And I go back to the desk, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we have you checking out today." I'm like, "Oh, I'm definitely not checking out today. So give me another night, please," which they gracefully gave me another night. Then at 6 a.m. the next morning at the airport, I'm trying to check into my flight, and it's not working. So I go up to the counter. They're like, "Your flight left
Yesterday?
yesterday."
So you were supposed to leave.
Yeah, I was supposed to leave the day before. Yeah. So um, that was frustrating.
Oh, shit.
But what made me feel better was I texted my dad to tell him what I did, and he said that he did the same thing in Vienna one time, and he had to stay an extra day. So
Oh, poor him.
poor him, poor him. But that guy traveled for a living, so if he could make that mistake, then anybody could make that mistake, except you for sure.
Except you. I
So,
can't. I
so
cannot.
let's talk briefly about the firearm training or the firearm safety rules, because these are probably the most sacred part of Jeff Cooper's uh, curriculum or heritage, not heritage, legacy that should have put it in the calendars. You know what? On my calendar, it was correct. On my work calendar, it was correct. In the app that I use for work that keeps track of the trip, it was correct. But the hotel and the flight were not correct. So I don't know what I did. So the firearm safety
Wait, wait, wait,
rule.
wait, wait. That makes no fucking sense.
I know.
No, no, hold on. Everything was correct except the dates for the hotel and the flight?
Yeah, the rental car date was correct, and the trip date in the app was correct. So
Huh.
I don't know. I don't know what I did.
Makes no fucking sense because usually the calendars follow whatever the airline
Yeah, yeah. So I,
someone
I
needs to get
I'm
fired.
at a loss, but I do know that
Make a
every
work
time
trip so
I
you don't schedule this shit, like, somebody schedules it for you.
no, I scheduled it. It was definitely my fault. I just don't know how
Ooh.
it happened. So, um,
Anyways,
yeah. So now every time well, as I'm realizing as I get older, like every time I do something really, really important, I'm now assuming that I'm going to do it wrong rather than worrying that I'm going to do it wrong. So it's a weird thing aging, because when you're young and you see people make mistakes and you're like, how could you make that mistake? And then now in my mid 40s, I'm like, how could I not make that mistake?
I'm
Show me how I could not make that mistake because I'm really interested in not making that. But um, yeah,
oh, shit.
uh, so the firearm safety rules in the videos, um, Cooper is making a very clear statement that safety is an attitude. Safety is what goes on between your ears. That items do not make you safe or unsafe. That it's the way you approach the thing that makes you safe or unsafe, and that's absolutely true.
Yeah,
But then he follows that up with the idea, well, with the statement that if you follow the four rules that he gives, and in this video it is four rules, it's not three. Um, if you follow them 100% of the time, you will never have an accident with a firearm. But then, as he goes on to explain the rules, including something like using a firearm in a classroom or something like that, he explicitly, verbally violates those rules. So there is a disconnect in the idea of what makes things safer or less safe and the actual practice when he goes to handle a firearm.
correct.
Um, so, but it is a line of thinking of how do we solve the problem of people not, or how do we solve the problem of people accidentally hurting themselves? Well, let's create some rules and we'll just all agree that no one ever violates these rules, and we'll create a culture that if you do violate these rules, then you are being unsafe. And I don't think that that's a terrible mindset as a starting point. I think it proves out over time that that's not really how it works. But if we're looking for a place to start, um, I mean, you got to understand at this time in human history, getting caught drunk driving was the cop telling you, go home and sleep it off.
Yeah,
Like the world was a less safe place than it is now.
correct,
Um, People died in car accidents a lot more commonly. People died in industrial accidents a lot more common. The whole maturity around the idea of safety was not a very mature idea.
correct.
Um, so, like I said, I don't think it was a bad place to start, but in practice, this is where we find flaws. Uh, so, credit for the idea that safety depends on the people, not the object, but also understanding that there is a deeply flawed approach to the idea that these rules are absolute and they can be followed 100% of the time.
Yeah, this is where I think it was 2 episodes ago, I brought up the idea and of being scientists in this craft, being scientists in this arena, and I think that's the difference, um, between what we're doing now and what it was taught back then. Because they had the video, they recorded the fucking thing. Like, for me, it's weird that nobody was like, "Hey, what the fuck?" Like, you said these words, but as you're saying the words, your actions are almost the opposite of that. Like, you're saying always point in a safe direction as you're fucking holding with the muzzle with your hand
Mhm.
and pointing your gun at the camera person. And we understand, like, now today, like, there's some, and this is why we don't say always and never and all that shit, the absolutes. We got to avoid the absolutes. I'm not saying that in a production, you may not do some risky stuff, not necessarily unsafe, just risky. And there is a difference between those two. But I genuinely believe that back then, just like very much they couldn't give two fucks about safety at all. Some people were trying, but also they didn't know how to be scientists in this arena. They didn't know. When I say scientists, I mean it by definition, right? Like, a scientist is just a human who studies a particular subject topic. There's no PhDs and there's no doctors of all this, but we do have to become scientists of this craft, and I don't think we had that back then. And I
So
think
could you imagine sitting in well, this is a thought experiment for everyone, not just you, but sitting in Jeff Cooper's classroom and this is several years into his tenure as Gun Jesus, and you're the one to raise your hand and say, "Wait a minute." Like, I know you would, but
in
that
today's
probably what
in
yeah,
today's mind, yeah, yeah,
yeah, but that probably wasn't the culture at the time. The culture was probably much more structured in the, like, uh, authority hierarchy. Like, he was a Marine, he was a colonel. A lot of the people that attended his training were uh, military or police, mostly police officers. I don't. I would guess that the culture wasn't like, "Hey, Mr. Cooper, you're demonstrating that you don't know what you're talking about." Like, that seems like probably wouldn't happen very often.
yeah,
Um, I wonder, and I'm curious what you think about this, if social media has made it easier to challenge that pedestal of this person is this, here's their resume, so therefore you can't challenge them. Um, because I know from experience, I can talk directly to these people on social media and they will read it and they will respond.
correct.
So, and
I
they
think
don't like it.
yeah, I think it's made it more acceptable. I mean, but also made it more acceptable to just talk shit just for the sake of talking shit. And there's that balance of, like, a Reddit. Reddit is a fucking cesspool of information, and it's such a shitty thing to say because occasionally there's these jams where, like, fuck, this was really good. I actually learned something from this from a platform that's traditionally full of shit.
Hmm.
I think that's the problem is when you go question it, now they have to put on the filters. Are you just a shit talker or a hater, or are you actually trying to contribute to this? So, like, but for sure, it's made it a lot easier. For sure.
I've had several interactions with Gabe Suarez. And if you're not familiar with Gabe Suarez, Suarez Tactics or Suarez International, um, and he has an established name for himself in the firearms training community, and he does a lot of the video, like, he does a lot of the same format that I've been doing, where you're just kind of sitting in front of a whiteboard and just talking about different concepts. Um, and a lot of the things that he says, I'm like, yeah, I pretty much basically agree. And some of the things he says definitely don't agree. And I've had interactions with him that have been productive interactions
Yeah,
where we're both actually trying to get to a point.
correct.
And I've had other interactions where he treats me as if like I'm just some random idiot on the YouTube. So I think there's definitely potential there, especially if you're presenting what you're trying to say in a way that's productive, your criticisms or your counterpoints as productive rather than just being like, "Oh, you're a FUD, you don't know what you're talking about. Go back to, FUD school." Um, which is what most people do.
Correct.
So, uh, Derek, good to hear from you. Sorry I have not returned your text. I had a very stupid weekend trying to get home from from a business trip. Um, yeah. So he said when I was teaching my kids, we went over all the rules constantly, made them check for clear every time they touched it, even if they saw me check it right in front of them. Um, so let's talk about this concept of the gun is always loaded, because that was Cooper's that was his rule. Always treat the firearm as if it is loaded. Uh, Meanwhile, he's doing this while he's continuously dry firing his 1911 in a classroom in front of a bunch of people. So obviously, in practice, he did not follow that rule. Um, but
Oh, I
let's
just had to yell this. I fucking had to like go in on an old school guy, old fucker, on Saturday because it's weird. The people that follow these rules are in from what I've seen, and I say this about as respectfully as I can possibly say this, while still trying to hold people accountable, is they seem to the ones that are like obsessed with these rules, like these are the rules, are the humans that will do the scariest fucking shit. There's one dude on the line every time. Well, not every time because I stopped him, but I seen him do it twice. He would, when I say go back to the holster, he would clear it and then uh, press the trigger. Like, what the fuck are you doing? All I said was just put it back in the fucking holster. And then the second time, he's like, "Well, I just gotta make sure it's clear, so that way I'm clearing a gun that's clear." And I was like, "What the fuck? Just put it in the fucking holster." Like you're doing scarier shit by trying to clear the gun and then press the fucking trigger, you fucking weirdo. Anyways,
Yeah, so the underlying principle of that is you are practicing unnecessary gun handling. It is not necessary to clear the gun because you are going to secure it in a holster. The same holster, by the way, that you are going to carry that gun around in Walmart, loaded.
yeah,
So if it's good enough for Walmart, why is it not good enough for the range?
correct,
Why is it not good enough for what we're doing out here? So all you're doing is manipulating the gun when you don't need to,
correct,
which the only way to make the gun fire is to manipulate it.
correct.
So you're doing things that are likely to cause it to go off so that you can be sure that it won't go off, even in a situation where we all agree it's not going to go off, whether or not you manipulate it. So I've had that conversation several times with people, and especially when it comes where people really don't understand this is pulling the trigger on the unloaded gun. Um, so they'll clear the gun and then point it at the ground or point it at the berm and then pull the trigger. And then when you ask them why they're doing that, they're like, to confirm it's not loaded.
But what if it
Well,
was?
why don't you just confirm that it's not loaded? Why are you doing the thing that would cause the gun to fire if it was loaded?
But that's the people who follow the four rules. That's what they would do. Well, it was
Yeah.
in the safe direction. I was like, yeah. But even if we go off of the stupid rules that you follow, Jeff Cooper's rules, which in 2026 we could admit they're fucking stupid rules. Your very first fucking rule is always treat it as if it were loaded. So like you're breaking that rule because you have another rule in there, and that's all there is this layered like, well, no, I can do that because I have another rule that'll save me. Like, how about you just don't do retarded shit, period, and avoid all of this stuff.
So I think that there's this kind of like underlying belief that without the rules, I am retarded. The only thing keeping me from being retarded is the rule.
Is the rules.
That's why you pull the trigger on a gun that you just verified is unloaded. Because what if I'm retarded and I didn't actually check the gun? So let's check it again in a way that we all know that the gun is absolutely unloaded because I'm about to pull the trigger on it, and if it was loaded, it would go off.
It would go off.
So, um, so this is covered in the IDS program by rule number 3, our big picture rule, our mindset rule.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that I'm retarded all the time. Obviously, I am too. That's how I got stuck in Cleveland uh, at 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday. Uh, Keep in mind that you are in control of a firearm and that you can hurt you or kill you or someone else if used negligently or maliciously.
Yeah.
So, what would a negligent person do with a firearm when they don't know what condition it's in? Well, they would treat it as if the gun was in a safe condition without checking to see that it's in a safe condition. But what if you need the gun to be in an unsafe condition? What if you need the gun to be in a loaded condition? So you're not going to use the same process to use the firearm in all circumstances. You are going to make sure the gun is in the condition that you need it to be to do the thing that you're about to do with it. I need to clean the gun. So I am going to check to make sure that it's not loaded before I clean the gun. And that means I am going to visually and physically inspect the chamber and the magazine well. And I'm going to do it twice because I'm cleaning the gun by myself. And I'm going to make sure that gun is not loaded. And now I'm going to treat it as if it's not loaded. I am going to pull the trigger on this gun to, make sure I can disassemble my Glock. I'm going to do the things necessary to unload the gun. So I have verified it's not loaded. I am no longer going to treat it as if it was loaded.
Correct.
Does that mean I'm going to point it at myself without need? No, that's not necessary. That's negligence. That's irresponsible behavior. But I'm definitely not treating this gun as if it's loaded. That would be counterproductive to what I'm trying to do with the
Right.
gun. So,
And oh, by the way, like if I have a 1911, like this is where it starts to break down. Where a lot of people and I hate that Derek just wrote what he wrote because I'm about to mention the that shit. Like people feel like they need like 17 different steps, like but you don't. Like you really don't because if you're just smart, the biggest thing you could do is just be smart. Like that's basically our rule number 3 is we have 3 rules. For those of you guys that don't know them, first one, finger somewhere other than the trigger until you're ready to shoot. Second rule is keep the weapon pointed in a generally safe direction whenever possible. Big picture rule, keep in mind that you're in control of a firearm, can hurt you, kill you, or someone else if used negligently, used maliciously. Like if you're just smart, like even those rules don't fucking matter. Like if you're just smart, I'd much rather people be smart and do the smart thing versus follow rules that can make you still dangerous. Following the 4 basic farm safety rules can still make you dangerous. Like we see this all the time at the range when people say, "Well, I was just going to follow the rules." Like the rule says I could do this, and then meanwhile they're doing really stupid stuff. We see this shit all the fucking time.
yeah, my favorite example of that is us all claiming that we understand that we're going to keep the weapon pointed in a safe direction at all times, or always keep the weapon pointed in a safe direction, and
Oh,
not even
Darren,
acknowledge.
yeah, Darren Bay is an example of doing stupid shit while following rules.
Right. And as a part of that rule, we're not even going to acknowledge where that gun is likely pointed as it goes into and out of your holster. So if we're not going to acknowledge that the gun is pointed at you as it comes into and out of the holster because it doesn't follow the rule, then we're creating an area where we're ignoring risk rather than dealing with it appropriately.
Right,
So, and Darren Bray's example of IDPA, uh, the the rule is a dumb rule. The rule is a dumb rule partly because for a bunch of firearms, what it's trying to accomplish is completely unnecessary. What it's trying to accomplish is to show that the hammer is down, and on striker fired guns, there is no hammer to look at. So pulling the trigger doesn't even visually prove that the gun is not in a condition to fire. Um, and IDPA's rules, um, in some ways are outdated, and in some ways just don't make any real sense. Not to say all their rules, but some of their rules absolutely don't make any sense. And a good example of that is the struggle that they've been having with appendix carry and managing the 180 rule around appendix carry, which has really been frustrating for I think a lot of people who are trying to use IDPA as a way to test their gun defensive skills, even though that's stupid, with their carry rig, and then not being allowed to do that without getting disqualified. So, um,
so you could actually read up on this. This is just the AI version, but there's
mhm.
a lot of people who have shot themselves. There's videos of people shooting themselves. A lot of it has to do with they're on timers.
Yeah,
So they do a lot of stupid stuff because they're trying to again, that's I'm trying to be the fastest, so I'm gonna do stupid shit. even though you're following the four rules. Um, but in many cases, we just seen one where we talked about it. Somebody was downrange. They called, stop the fucking thing. And this person was supposed to go back to the holster, but in order to not get disqualified, you had to press the trigger. He pressed the trigger as he was going into the holster. Darren explains it, you have to in USPSA or else you get, or IDPA. USPSA is where this one was at, or else you get disqualified. And well, he pressed the trigger to show it was clear, but it wasn't for whatever weird reason. In the chaos of stop, there's somebody downrange. Um, he ended up fucking shooting himself. And that you see this shit all over the fucking place. Again, when we say all over, like you see this a lot. It's if you have 10 happen at a USPSA match is a lot. Um, if I think it's a little bit more than that, unfortunately, but it's common. It's not rare. I
Yeah.
mean, it's rare, but it's not uncommon, if that fucking makes sense.
So let's talk about Darren's comment or Derek's comment here are layers of steps to make sure your TISM hasn't failed you in multiple ways. Um, one of my one of my hobby areas of learning, I don't do this stuff, I don't practice this stuff, but I like to learn about it, uh, is aviation. And
Yeah.
aviation uses the Swiss cheese model, which is the more layers we have of fail safes, the less likely a problem is to get through all of those layers and cause an accident. And this model has served the airline industry or aviation, I should say, uh, pretty well because it's pretty dangerous if you think about getting into a big chunk of metal strapped to a jet engine and then flying around and then trying to land the thing. That's not exactly safe behavior, but especially the commercial airline industry has become one of the safest industrial environments in the history of man, and they use this model. So if we're trying to say we don't have we don't want to do unnecessary things, but the idea of pulling the trigger is one more layer of safety. um, how do we strike this understanding of what is actual negligence, what is increasing risk, where do we add layers, where do we not add layers? uh, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. I think it has to do with the complexity of the systems. It requires these layers. The complexity of the system of flying an aircraft and putting it down on the ground on a planet where a bunch of other people are doing the same thing. Like all the things that could possibly go wrong requires a lot of layers of safety. Whereas a firearm is a relatively simple tool.
Yeah.
And that's provable by the fact that many people who don't know how to fly an airplane are probably incapable of learning how to fly an
Right.
airplane can handle a firearm
Right.
safe enough.
I think the layers are not rules. So, like an example for us would be, and maybe I'm wrong. We need to present this to other people: Derek, Gurky, Barrett, Pincus, Alessandro, kind of for feedback. Our peer review and people here on the interwebs that are commenting is an example for us in our course would be presentation from the holster. Like there's layers there until there doesn't need to be layers anymore. Fuck, even ETP, there's
Mhm.
layers there until there's no more need for the layers. Like I've seen you do the thing. And anytime that we're going to go into something super complex, so like the very first exercise that we do, call it drill, call it whatever. We don't necessarily call them drills, but whatever, that's what people know. But ETP, extend touch press, it's full sentences, step by step, and then I see you be able to perform it or do it. Performance is the wrong word. I see you do it safely in a way where I can take away layers. I don't need the full sentences. I don't need the step by step. Now I could just use one word and it means all of that together. Presentation from the holster. It's a lot of people are like, why are we not doing from the holsters? Because I don't even know if you can fucking take a step to the side yet. I don't even know if you can put it all together. So we're gonna wait to do presentation from the holster until I see you do all kinds of complex shit. and then we'll do presentation from the holster.
I'm laughing because the gun website's comment. You don't have to start over unless you want to.
And take it from the top, boys.
so, so the idea is that the layers are only there where they need to be, and that's absolutely true. You do not want unnecessary layers because unnecessary layers start to add risk rather than take risk away. So the airline, a complex system requires complex processes to execute. So you're going to have complex systems around communications and automated systems and mechanical um, integrity, pilot. Like it comes like they even monitor the brain sleep cycles to know when the areas of risk are for pilots. That peak of that nighttime rhythm, like that hour from 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. is one of the highest risk times for accidents. So they try to reduce the likelihood that a pilot will be operating in that time whenever they can, or they try to manage that with backup systems and backup pilots and all that stuff. But it's an extraordinarily complex system. Drawing a gun from a
It's also
holster,
it's also a controlled system.
well, it is controlled system
Like,
until
it's
it's not.
scheduled, correct, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
so there's an accident, but it's like, I'm scheduling it, we know when the flight heads out unless it's
Yeah. The
predict or
the the issue there though is that the emergencies
correct,
are inherently life threatening. An emergency when the aircraft is in the air is
sure,
inherently life threatening.
you're gonna die,
And it starts to stimulate the same kinds of responses
for
that
sure,
happen on the ground.
for sure.
So everything is supposed to be coordinated and everything's supposed to work well, but it's kind of the same idea as like you driving in traffic and the red light tells everybody when to stop until somebody doesn't stop. And then you get hit and the A pillar hits you square in the forehead. Like um so there is still the element of not surprise, but chaos and threat.
Yeah,
So, surprise in that, like, we didn't know we were going to have an emergency, but it's not surprising. Like, we're in an aircraft, we have to have systems around protecting against emergencies. So, anyway, just the autopilot system alone is complex enough that even the most basic autopilot systems can kill a pilot in under a minute. So, we do have to have complex systems to manage that. Whereas the firearm, the only thing that's going to cause that firearm to discharge is if somebody presses or something presses the trigger. That's a pretty simple system. And the gun is not unsafe until that thing happens. That
yeah,
one thing happens. So that
and by the way, this is where a lot of people, like, in their heads believe, like, "Well, no, like, a SIG," because I could already see it in the future comments about the SIG P320. And the reality is, like, but it's still being pressed. Like, it may not be you actually actuating it, but there's a thing that you did. So Glocks, people act like this is unique to SIG. If you fuck with the internal safeties enough, the safety plunger, you polish it, and I think I forget which one it was, but I think Zev triggers had an issue early on where they polished the safety plunger a little bit too much, and in some isolated circumstances the gun would go off because the spring was too light and it wouldn't actually stop the firing pin from going forward, so it wasn't blocking it. So that was basically anything could allow the firing pin to move forward and strike the
well,
primary.
my own personal experience with Zev triggers is that they're insanely light.
Yeah,
And that you can accidentally press the trigger when you don't mean to, but you're still pressing the trigger.
and
It's
and
not
that's
going off by itself.
and that's what I mean, like, it's
Yeah.
still, it's not like just magically going off, like, there's still something, even if it's something that's wrong internally,
Mhm.
there's still something that needed, especially with the Glock, because the Glock, unless you switch it out for some of the newer triggers where they turn it more into a skimmer, um where it works kind of like a Smith and Wesson more than it does the Glock. But the Glock, you have to, when you press the trigger, it's actually pulling the striker back.
Mhm.
It's not like it's not precog like the Canics. You can see the needle stay back, and then when you press the trigger, it has a little ramp that goes down, and it releases. That's what releases the firing pin. But it's
Mhm.
not like that. So it's even with the Glock and a few other guns, it's even more complex to make it go off um, because the trigger bar needs to pull back on
And I
the
think in general, the what happened with the SIG reflects the culture, the general culture of trying to be as safe as possible with the firearm, which is if there's even a hint that this gun is malfunctioning and going off, what people say uncommanded, but what they mean is less commanded than meant to, uh, that the gun is an unacceptable firearm. And I don't totally really disagree with that
Right.
concept. The
At
Remington
least for
700,
self-defense.
yeah, the Remington 700 had that problem,
Yeah,
and Remington, took the steps to try to fix it. And then we have other firearms that we know are inherently unsafe to store in a loaded condition, loaded round in the chamber. And so the culture is that that gun is not intended to be stored that way. Like you're dumb if you store it that way. You're dumb if you leave your Mossberg 500 with a round in the chamber leaning in your closet, because it's not designed to do that.
yeah,
So you're the problem. The gun is not the problem. You're the problem. So I think the complexity of these layers should absolutely reflect what is necessary, not and not anything more. Um, One of the things that I've seen constantly in industrial environments, because I've worked in different, manual labor type jobs or working in warehouses and things like that, is if people do not understand why a safety precaution is in place, they will not follow it. And I don't mean understand like they read it in a book. I mean understand like they have internalized an understanding of the risk. So one
yeah,
of the most common ones you would see is people not wearing their safety glasses
correct,
on a job site. And they'd show videos of people getting eye injuries. They show pictures, but in your daily work life, you never actually saw anybody get hurt in the eyeball.
correct.
And the the safety glasses were just a pain. Why do I have to wear these? But at some point, it occurred to me that no matter how uh, how silly it seemed, I don't want to lose my eye, and so I internalized that the need for wearing the safety glasses, because there are splinters, there are unexpected overhead objects, and you could lose an eye, and you don't want to lose an eye. So I think when you have these safety things that are in place and you tell people like always do this, and you're just repeating things that you've been told, that doesn't get people to internalize an understanding of the risk.
Correct.
And they don't internalize the approach, the responsible approach to safety. That's the part that's really hard to teach people, I think.
Correct.
Because even though everybody knows that guns can kill somebody, their brains don't really understand that just by telling them.
Yeah,
Or most people don't, I should say.
correct.
Um, so one of the things that I think that the rules that we use try to impart to people is like, this is on you, which is going back to what Jeff Cooper was saying, that this is on you, that we're not safe because of the rules, we're not safe because of the tool, or we're not unsafe because of the tool. We're safe or we're unsafe because of you. You have a responsibility to behave in a rational, mature, responsible way around the firearm. So to his credit, I think that Jeff Cooper did a great job of explaining that point. And then counterpoint, he just repeats these rules and then breaks them in front of everybody. So
And I think that's the when I watched that video, it's just that's the like, my lord, like he's constantly breaking the rules as he's saying the rules. Um, and nobody's saying anything about it. Everybody was
mhm.
like, yeah, that's. That's the way it goes.
Yeah. So on that note, um, there is a YouTube channel um, called Dirty Kids, I think it is. Have you heard of Dirty Kids?
Have not heard of Dirty Kids.
Okay, let's pull up Dirty Kids. I think it's Dirty Kids. Yeah. Dirty
I'm
Kid.
afraid I'm afraid to Google that.
Yeah. Well, don't Google it, go straight to YouTube. Um, but there is this like there's this I don't know what to call it exactly, but like maybe anti-establishment, rebellious, which I'm perfectly comfortable with from a ethical point of view, from the idea that that we're not always we don't just respect the things because everybody tells us to respect the things. you know we, Humans have a tendency to kind of want to go into the dark areas and
Correct.
um but this is the kind of thing that um let's see if I can get there. This is a drunk shooting challenge, so they're doing a shooting challenge wearing those drunk goggles. um and I don't know what they're talking about because I wasn't listening, but um one of these guys is
These
about.
jump goggles are pretty interesting because they only affect your vision, not necessarily your
Yeah.
whoa, 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 wee woo, wee woo. What?
Yeah. So, um, and it's not like an accidental thing.
This is very much an on purpose thing. Whoa, 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 whoa. What the fuck?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
This would be the other extreme
Correct.
of that irreverence. Um, and like if you go read the comments, it will be hard for you to find somebody who's calling this out as irresponsible behavior because they have their own little fandom of like idiots who think that this is funny. Um, and yeah, this is I mean, I would laugh at these people, but I wouldn't call this funny. I would just be like,
Correct.
I can't believe that as an adult male you're this dumb. So 306,000 subscribers, 148,000 views on the video. So highly successful. Um,
And I think there's this difference between Keanu Reeves doing this because this is would be the rebuttal to like, well, Keanu Reeves does it. Like, yeah, but going back to Derek's point, like in that Keanu Reeves probably has multiple layers of. I don't know. I wasn't there for the production, but I do
mhm.
know how a lot of YouTubers do their videos, and it's basically just as long as the cameras are rolling, they just fucking go for it and see what happens.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
on a movie set, you have a much more complex system. I would argue you're going to be alternating types of firearms that do different things. Some of them just look like guns and are used as kind of like a stand-in prop.
Correct.
Some of them function like real firearms, and the only thing that's really keeping them from hurting anybody is that you're not using any live ammo. And then some of them are somewhere in between those two, and you have multiple people handling these firearms. You have multiple people pointing these firearms at people. So you have a very complex set of circumstances where you're using these tools, and I think that's the case where that airline safety model of much more layers of security to prevent this kind of thing, rather than these guys who probably cleared the gun at some point before this happened. One person probably cleared the gun before this happened. Nobody else is verifying it. Nobody else planned that this was going to, like, this was not a planned execution with the gun. This is just something that happened. That's the difference between Keanu Reeves and
correct.
these retards. So, um, yeah, yeah. I don't know what the goggles are for. They're already acting like they're hammered. Um, so, like when I first saw this, I thought I missed something, and I thought that this was like a dummy gun, and I'm like, no, that's definitely a
It
2011.
It checks out though because it's a staccato.
Yeah.
Uh,
How dumb do you have to be to buy one? This dumb.
it's this is very much staccato activity right here.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, um, so yeah, this is the other extreme. Um, all right, have we been uh what's the word you used? Functionally irreverent? No.
respectful?
Respectfully irreverent long enough?
I think so.
Okay.
I
I got
think
a video to show of a self-defense shooting that I think happened somewhere else, not in the United States, I'm pretty sure. Let's see here. This video was recently featured on another YouTube channel that likes to play self-defense videos. So some of you may have already seen this. And I'm just gonna go. Oh, am I not? I'm not sharing, right?
you're not sharing right
Oh, I'm not sharing. Okay. All right. Here we go. Duh, duh.
now. Let me
Okay, guy in the blue shirt is working the countertop. You can't really tell, but there is a female who is apparently this guy's girlfriend or wife who is just outside of frame right here on the right. And he shot and killed her. So he has some idea that this bad guy is coming because his response is kind of like pretty. He sees the guy in the motorcycle helmet and he starts reaching for his gun. And he clears the gun over the cash register, points it. I'm going
as
to
he's
try to
running
slow
away.
this down.
I wonder where this is. I know you're thinking about something and you have something to say, but I'll forget if I don't say it right now.
Hmm.
I wonder if this is where a lot of tardos who say the Weaver stance or like bladed stance is still kind of, and then they would point to this video, not understanding that he's also trying to run back towards the office as he's shooting. It's not a planted, fixed position, which I would argue he shouldn't be running and shooting at the exact same time because what happened largely to the negligent manner in which he was shooting at. He was shooting and running away at the exact same time.
Yeah.
But
So
he's
when his
set up now.
yeah, in this moment, he's drawn the gun, he's pointing the gun is fully extended, the gun is up and parallel with his line of sight,
Yeah,
and his hips are facing the target and his shoulders are facing the
correct,
target. At the point where the gun comes out and he starts getting a gun pointed at him and maybe shot at him, it's hard to tell. That's when his body goes into that automated, or I would say that natural reaction to move away from the danger, that fight or flight
yeah,
movement.
yeah,
So that first shot basically lined up with his intent. Gun was still pointed towards him and he fired, although he's already starting to move here. And then this is the shot where he is looking in the other direction. His posture is that protective stance.
yeah,
Head is down, lower center of gravity, arm moving towards the center of his body. But the thing in his hand that says this is my weapon stays extended.
correct,
This is my means of defense, stays extended
correct,
and continues to fire even though he's not looking in the direction he's firing. And
correct.
our bad guy here is doing pretty much the same thing, except he's not firing. He's just booking it out of the doorway. But it's this shot, I think, that ends up hitting the female that is slightly out of frame here. So, because it doesn't look like he fires again, and then we see that movement over on the left or the right side of the frame. So here he goes into the assessment. So his attention returns to the direction that he last knew the threat was coming from. Um, and there you see he's still focused on that direction of the threat.
He's gun focused, not
Gun
even
focused. Yeah.
he's not even threat focused, he's gun focused.
So, like, what I think I'm seeing here is that brain has locked into the threat and the response to the threat. And there is nothing else in his world right now, really, except those two things.
Correct.
Um, and he clearly cares about this person that he shot, because later you can hear his response. So this is not like just some random person. This is a very important person to him. So that's why I'm saying his brain is so locked in right now, because he's not even acknowledging or looking for that other person. He's looking towards the gun and the last direction that the threat was.
Correct. So that's all right
Once
about here, huh?
Yeah, right about here, the stimulus is now gone, and he believes it's gone. And so the brain moves into that assessment.
Yeah.
So she apparently didn't survive. There's really not much more, I think, to the video that's important to watch. But you mentioned moving and shooting. And, a lot of people put an emphasis on this idea of moving and shooting. And it's not to say that there would never be in a situation where moving and shooting at the same time would be appropriate. Uh, we don't work in absolutes here, but the problem with this moving and shooting was he lost the ability to control the firearm,
Correct.
but his brain was still telling him to defend.
Correct.
So, bad day.
Not a good
um,
one.
yeah. Now, when we talk about moving as you're accessing the gun, this is a pretty confined space, but I'm willing to bet it's a space that he's fairly familiar with. And so, based on what we normally train, which is as you're accessing the gun, moving as you're accessing the gun, um, it's hard to tell in the video because we can't see everything. But we do know he did successfully move all the way to the office at some point, but he probably wouldn't have gotten there during his draw stroke. We can't tell if there's anywhere for on the right for him to move. The stool is blocking a left movement right here, and we can't really even tell if he can go backwards.
There'd be no benefit to go backwards either way.
Yeah.
So you're saying he wouldn't have been able to make it to the office while
Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to make it to the office. Now, if we're training that we're doing stimulus response and the brain is saying, if I am accessing the gun, I should be trying to move, he probably would have moved in the same direction that he did eventually move into.
he would have drawn the gun faster than he would have gotten to the office.
Yeah, the gun would have likely, I mean, if we just look at
Yeah,
the time it took him to access the gun, even from concealment, one-handed, that was a really quite quick
correct.
draw. To full extension. I mean, I would say that's probably somewhere in the range of the movement of the hand to the gun and the extension of less than 1.25 seconds.
And I think this is a big push for what we talk about, and that's this idea of fucking process information.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need to teach your brain, and teach your brain is the wrong way of saying it. So I have to say this better. We have to tell our brain um when to process information, because right now the limbic system just wants to get the fuck up out of there, because it's
Mm-hmm.
never been in this position before, or if it has, it's been in similar positions but not in something exactly like this. So like the limbic system, like, just get the fuck up out of here as quickly as you possibly can. I don't know that you can unlearn that because that's part of your 300,000-year-old chip. Like, that shit is locked into your Intel Pentium processor. It's fucking in there. Don't die. But you in training, you can in your stimulus response, like, I need to process information. And we see this a lot. We've seen this in the tent city one, um, the Brazilian REI, where the
Mhm.
dude also takes his very first shot while looking at the ground,
Mhm.
not actually processing information. So yeah, it's one of these complex things. I don't know what I would have done because I wasn't there. I'm not there, but
Mhm.
you had he emphasized processing information in his training, if he does any training at all, um, no guarantee, but I think that other lady would be alive right now.
Yeah, I mean, we're fighting evolution in in terms of modern using modern technology over a system that was developed without that modern technology.
Right.
So the idea that that you could be surprised like this and at these distances and access a tool and use that tool at a distance that you probably couldn't use any other tool, or driving is a good example too. Like the way that our brains process risk when we're driving has to be learned. None of it is intuitive. Um, and until it is learned, we understand that, inexperienced drivers are just inherently less safe drivers. So,
Well, it's the warrior expert theory, right? Like, it's recognition. Right now, this person has no recognition to process information. New drivers, one of their biggest problems is not so much that they kind of suck at driving. We understand why.
mhm,
They just don't know how much the steering wheel moves when they twist it to the left and they twist it
mhm.
to the right. They don't know how much pressure it requires to stop the fucking car or to make it go. Like, that's really what makes them unsafe. It's not that they've just never been here before and they don't have the recognition of.
Well, I would say they do. There is that factor because when you're teaching them how to pull into traffic, they don't know how to judge
Correct,
speed. They
correct.
don't know how to judge their own speed. They don't know
I
how to
mean,
judge the other vehicle's speeds. They don't. When you tell them to check their blind spot, they don't know. They have not automated that
correct,
movement. So um, when we look for more information, we look to the places where it's known to be. But if you haven't trained that, then you
correct,
don't know where that information is. So
correct,
you have to. So I think it's a lot of things. It's learning to use the tool, but it's also learning to where to find the information.
correct.
Um, so this guy seemed to be in a mindset that he was primed for this. Like he saw this guy coming, motorcycle helmet on. I'm just guessing here. Motorcycle helmet on, coming through, hand in pocket, something like that. Because before the door is even all the way open,
Yeah, he's already racing.
he's reaching for his gun.
Yeah,
Um, the the issue here is him being overwhelmed, I think, with the threat. The threat overwhelmed him, or his perception of the threat overwhelmed him. Because everything was fine for this guy until he got shot at or he believed that he was about to be shot at. And that's where the shoulders turn, the head goes down, that defensive posture, right? So no defensive posture here, no lowering center of gravity, no bringing the hands up to the face.
this is offensive. You could argue this is offensive,
Right.
even though he's defending himself. It's still offensive.
It's offensive, 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 defensive.
Yeah,
So,
it's such a weird dynamic. It's such a weird thing to kind of explain to people that even though he didn't have it in his calendar, right? Like, his
mhm,
calendar didn't say at this time you're going to be attacked, but he still knows the Brazilian cues. I'm sure this is somewhere in South America.
mhm,
He still knows the cues. Dude with helmet, um, reaching in waistband equals bad.
mhm.
So even though it was a quasi surprise, he still anticipated based off of the cues. Um,
And that was working until the defensive, um, until the lizard brain took over.
yeah,
When that threat
correct.
when that threat became when it crossed the threshold, because clearly this guy thinks there's a threat right here.
Obviously,
Otherwise, why would he be pulling his gun out,
correct.
right?
Correct.
But it crossed a threshold, and then that lizard brain took over, which is protect the head and face, move away from danger.
Correct.
And his means of defense in his hand just kept working,
Correct.
but even without any reference point on making sure that it was going in the right place.
Correct.
And this is something you see. I've seen this so many times with people who
Drive-bys.
play like airsoft or paintball.
Oh yeah.
Is they're all like super badass until somebody actually starts hitting them, and then the pain is the stimulus, and they will book it, but they will continue to fire in whatever direction they last knew that the threat was in. That's like they're holding out hope, not consciously, but the lizard brain is holding out hope that they're still going to successfully defend, even if they're no longer looking at the threat.
Yeah, fucking gun websites. Uh,
um,
the gun website says, determined at that buzzard to alert when open. When he heard the beep, his muscle started to draw.
that's funny. Um, yeah, so it's definitely a good example of of failure to train for the lizard brain. And I wouldn't even okay, I wouldn't even say that, because how do I know? How do I know what he's trained in?
Correct.
But I would say that this is what we train for. We train for the lizard brain because it's outside of your control once it kicks in. So we need trained responses that work when the lizard brain kicks in. So how do we train for this in the IDS program? How do we train for this guy's posture?
What do you mean for this guy's posture?
Like when we say we're training for the lizard brain, how do we incorporate what we're seeing here into the IDS training?
I must not be understanding, but in terms of his posture, we would not encourage him being sideways. But
No,
we do talk about this idea of stance doesn't really matter. It's this stance is whatever the fuck it is at that very moment when it's needed, but you should shoot planted. So if he was moving towards the office, he should not have started shooting until he was at the office.
yeah, if he had made that decision, but even before we get to the use of cover in the class, we incorporate the startle response
Oh yeah, the startle response. Got it.
into the trained response of using the firearm. So we mimic that startled response: head down, shoulders up, hands move towards head, lower center of gravity, to look
So there's
and
a
then defend.
because you can't see the Instagram ones. There's Instagram says T clips says you have to kill the lizard brain, and that's where the problem is. You cannot kill the
You
lizard
can't
brain.
kill
You,
it.
you cannot kill the lizard brain.
Now you can acclimate the body and the rest of the brain to the lizard brain, but only if you can successfully
Yeah,
recreate the actual context.
yeah. There's a lot of neuroscience on this, and this is a very well agreed upon problem with in the neuroscience community,
Hmm.
and they all agree you cannot kill the lizard brain because basically what you're saying is I am better than my Jesus. Whatever it is deity that you believe in is I am better than my deity, because remember, whatever wherever you came from or whatever you believe you came from made you that way. So if you believe in Jesus, if you believe in Allah, Muhammad, you believe in none of that shit, whatever it is you believe in, Your creator made you to be that way, and when you say, "I know more than my creator," like, you have to be careful with that, because you don't. Yeah, and that is a problem, though. Like, we have this idea that we can kill the lizard brain, and we believe that we can because it works in a controlled environment
Mhm.
and never works out in the wild. Because in a controlled environment, again, Bill Burr is 100% correct. When you're training at the range, it's a hyper controlled environment. It's not real. The neoepinephrine is not working the same way. The amygdala is not working the same way. The thalamus is not working the same way, until you end up in this, and then you're like, oh, this is the thalamus. This is the hypothalamus. This is real.
Right.
You
So
cannot
what I
lizard brain.
think what the intent behind that statement is you have to learn how to kill the fear.
Yeah,
You can't kill the fear, but you can get used to being in an environment that is threatening. But
yeah,
you can only get used to being in an environment that's threatening by being in an environment that's threatening.
correct.
And the context has to match. So, like, being in a race car, driving at the absolute limits of the car, and having your brain respond to the fear of what happens if this all goes wrong. If you took the average driver and put them in a NASCAR race, they would not be able to function. They would
Correct.
be too afraid.
Correct.
But then you put these people in that NASCAR over and over and over and over and over again. The danger is real. The brain understands the danger is real. The brain has contextualized that the danger is present, but I am managing that danger with the things that I'm doing.
But again, it's that recognition.
Recognition,
I've
right?
recognized how this moves and that moves, and it tells your hippocampus, because a big part of your lizard brain is the communication between the hippocampus, where your memory lives,
Hmm.
and the amygdala, the alert center,
Right,
and the thalamus and the hypothalamus. That communication of, like, the memory saying, yes, this is dangerous, but remember, if we adjust this way, it all works out. But
right.
remember, if I hit the brake this way, it all works out. And if I do this, it all works out.
So I would say that you could take the average person and put them in a NASCAR simulator, and you put them in a NASCAR race, and they would still not be able to function in
Yeah.
the race,
Yeah.
because it is not just the visual things that are happening, which is what the simulator is trying to recreate. It's the smells and the sounds
Yeah.
and the entire context. Um, so when we
Speaking of
talk about putting
simulators,
people in a simulator for self-defense, it's not doing the same thing. It's not creating the threat. It can perhaps scratch the surface a little bit, but generally speaking, um, it's not able to recreate the threatening environment. Plus, it's a one-off. Like, you do an active shooter drill in a simulator, and you're like, okay, I've done it, I've done it, but you've only done it in a school or a church.
correct. Correct.
You haven't done it at Starbucks. You haven't done it at Walmart. Is this Robert's thing? The
Yeah.
Kenez
Yeah.
driving simulator? I need to go check this out. Definitely. Um, yeah. So I guess he's basically retired, Robert Butler, from the firearm stuff, because he got basically regulated out of the business, I think, is the primary problem. So, to answer the part about killing the fear, there's no reliable, safe way to do that in self-defense training.
Yeah.
Um, and if even if you could, there's no real way to gauge the success of that, because the context is likely to be completely different than the context that you trained in.
Yeah. That's why you could only give your brain cues, right? Like, if my hands are here, when I extend out and then I bring the gun back, then I process information. When my gun is still out, my my process at that point is actively shooting at the bad guy. So therefore, the processing of information is with the bad guy. Once the bad guy starts running away, then I can stop the attack. But there was no processing of information. This was sheer panic.
Right.
This was sheer fucking emotional reaction to the threat.
Right. Now, I think what he's doing right here, like when we talk about the body's natural responses and trying to train for things that work well with what the body does naturally, he doesn't know right now if there is still a threat. So, looking towards the direction where the threat last was, that part of this is a natural response, and I think is not hurting him in this case. He needs to deal with the threat. He needs to deal with what could still be a threat. Now, doing it with the gun extended, we would say if you're in that assessment of trying to find the threat, you shouldn't have your gun extended. But we're really kind of like carving the edges here
Correct.
of the behavior. And then when he establishes that there is no threat, then you see that assessment to people, other people, right?
Correct.
So, um, what the IDS program is trying to do is what works, what the body does naturally, and what works well with what the body does naturally. So when we train for assessment, we don't have to necessarily train you how to assess. We want to train you to assess efficiently, and we want to train you to not assess in a way that's more risky than it has to be. Don't assess with the gun out if the gun doesn't need to be out.
Correct.
Um, but the assessment is something we naturally do. We're just trying to get better at it in the context of having a firearm in your hand when you do it.
Correct.
So um, so yeah, we the program trains that when the stimulus is the defensive posture is something that happens when the limbic system is perceiving a life-threatening stimulus.
Correct.
So what next? When the body goes into that posture and looks at the direction, the next thing we do is access the firearm and continue to move our posture towards the threat and do what comes naturally, extend those arms all the way out,
Correct.
look at the target, touch and press the trigger until you don't need to do it anymore. So, to your point, that initial presentation was offense. Then it became defense, and the guy loses control.
Correct.
So, um, yeah, General or not General, Lieutenant Grossman, the guy who wrote On Killing and On Combat, one of like I think some of the things that he wrote in that book are a little specious, not necessarily absolutely true. However, one thing that he talked about was pilots in World War II and pilots who survived their first 5 dogfights were over 90% likely to survive the rest of their dogfights. And pilots, obviously, who didn't get past the first 5,
They're
but
good.
they they were placed in that context a relatively short, like a few number of times. 5 times. That's not that many times.
Yeah.
That's not a lot of repetition, but it was enough repetition for them to start to be able to manage that fear while operating an aircraft and being shot at and shooting at other aircraft, all of which are very complicated, difficult things to do. But that's where that warrior expert theory came in or comes in context, being in context, and then more likely you are to respond more efficiently. And that's what combat's all about is being efficient. Uh, if you are efficient and if you're more efficient than your opponent, you are likely to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we argue this a lot in well, I maybe not a lot, maybe there's a little bit of hyperbole there, but we mentioned this quite a bit in this idea of if if we can get you 1 or 2 repetitions in a particular thing, you're significantly better off than if you had none whatsoever. So, like, are you gonna be super awesome? Are we guaranteeing anything? Like, no, but if you get 1 or 2 repetitions, it's going to be significantly better than if you had none whatsoever, obviously.
And obviously significantly better than if you had learned an incorrect way
Correct.
and then tried to correct it with a couple of iterations or repetitions of that thing. That's why it's very obvious to us when we have people who have never shot before, um, typically younger. I am going to make this distinction that older people need more repetitions than younger people do. But
But a lot of it is just unfucking themselves from the bad habits, not
Well, no,
necessarily.
I'm talking about the older people who have never handled a firearm before. So this is your little old lady, to
Got
call in
it.
a stereotype. Um, Little old lady living alone, maybe for the first time in her life. Somebody in her family has convinced her that she needs a firearm, or she convinced herself, and she comes to the range. Now she is nervous, so that contributes to the amount of time it takes to learn.
Right.
Um, Nervous that they're not going to be able to manipulate the firearm, nervous that they're going to make a fool of themselves. But typically, the older person, and this is just brain plasticity, there's no magic here,
Correct.
is going to need more
Only
repetitions. But the few repetitions that they get do make an impact, even if they are older. Um, and I believe I see that in the first couple
right.
hours of the class,
Yeah.
where they overcome those obstacles much quicker than most people would think they would in that environment. So, um, and I've seen more than a couple people come through the class, the IDS program, on their second or third time. And the difference in the second or third trip to the class is enormous because they've had time to slow down. I think that's the biggest thing I see is that they slow down, and in that slowing down they become way more effective. They're making a lot less mistakes, and they're able to do those tasks, that we're asking them to do, um, in a more fluid way, but not rushing through them.
Correct.
So, um, generally speaking, that's not always true, because sometimes people will come through and they've learned some other things and now they've got to fix uh, those things that they've learned. So now I'll say this, and I'm not even going to bring up this person's name, but this other YouTube channel that spent time talking about this video really focused on the decision making that happened during this. And the point that we're trying to make here is that there is very little decision making going on right here. That's the point. That we don't want to try to solve these problems with that frontal cortex. Well, what should he have done? We want that training to be that stimulus response training, so that you don't have to think about, you know, orienting towards a target and connecting the stimulus and response.
This is where it baffles me. It's 2026. We've had roughly about 60 years ish. Somebody can fact check me on this. We should probably do it live. But we've had about 60-ish years of good neuroscience studies, like solid shit
Hmm.
that proves that the front prefrontal cortex, your high level thinking, is out of commission at this moment. This is why you have to work on not getting angry, because once you get angry, you start saying the shit that you shouldn't have said. Like we've all been guilty of saying shit like, "Ah, fuck, I shouldn't have said it. That's not what I meant. That's I was angry. I was hungry. Shit. Just when you're hungry,
Hmm.
you say and do a lot of shit that you would never do when you're not hungry. That's because your brain's not thinking. Your higher level is not active at that moment. It's your survival instincts. Like, motherfucker, if you don't feed me really quick, so like I don't know if this is 100% true, but it would make sense that you're tapping into your savagery to fucking get that hog, to get that fucking buffalo. Because imagine right now going into your backyard and killing a squirrel. Like it just like unless you're a fucking sadist and a fucking psycho, like that's not necessarily in you. But you hungry a little bit, and you're like, I'll fucking smoke a fucking squirrel really
Yeah.
quick.
Well, we know that people will eat each other if they're hungry enough.
But that
Like, if we
that only happens when you're not thinking straight.
Yeah.
That only happens when like you've overcome all of the normal brain activity. You've tapped into this savage level. The isolated circumstance, I guess, would be when you got brought up culturally that way.
Mhm.
And your culture kind of made you this way. There's an argument to be made for that. Um, but for most humans, it's you're not thinking straight. You're kind of outside of your body, so to speak, at this point.
Yeah, I think, my beliefs are that the it's very easy to be lulled into, like, ego, that if I can solve a complex problem, then why wouldn't I be able to use my brain to solve this problem?
Yeah,
Um, because it's so effective in solving other types of problems. But all you have to do is see somebody lose control to realize how hard it is to come back from that
yeah,
in the moment.
yeah.
Um, like, I used to work in a residential treatment facility, and we have kids who would just, lose it. They would get stimulated in some way, whether it was a mental illness issue or a trauma issue, um, something like that. They would get stimulated in a certain way, and you could not. There is no talking to that person. There is no combination of words that you could give that person that is going to bring them down. They physically needed something that talking and thinking was not going to be able to provide for them. You had to do something to their body to bring them down.
Correct.
And usually, what you needed to do is separate them from the situation. As long as they stayed in that situation, they would stay elevated. You had to physically remove them from the stimulus in order to get them to start to come back down again. So the verbal part of our brain is like, no, we could solve that with words. And the limbic system is like, no, we need to remove yourself from the situation before we can even consider calming down. Um, and so when you see that kind of stuff play out, and you realize how out of control that person really is, and this is a person that is relatively normal in other circumstances, but when triggered properly, they're not, they're basically not a human being anymore, because we think of human beings as being able to communicate with each other. And this person has lost the ability to communicate.
Correct.
Um,
You can't
yeah.
and this is going back to you cannot kill the lizard brain.
So, and there is a reason for it, right? And the reason is to keep you alive.
Still.
And it's really good at that. Except in a modern society where firearms exist and automobiles exist and nuclear weapons exist. Like,
Well, we're civilized.
yeah, we're civilized.
We're civilized now. This is all kinds of biologically acceptable shit we have treated as no longer biologically acceptable anymore.
Yeah.
Uh,
I listen to the CCW Safe podcast a lot, because Don West is one of the hosts, and he's one of the attorneys on the CCW staff. And Don West was an attorney on George Zimmerman's self-defense case. And much of what they say I disagree with, but I like hearing the perspective of lawyers who are experts in the field of practicing law, and they invite an instructor on to give the instructor point of view, which I appreciate. I think that's important. Again, there's a lot of things that this instructor says that I don't necessarily agree with, but something he's been saying a lot, and it's kind of stuck with me, is the idea from a defensive point of view. From a defensive point of view, the goal is to break contact. The goal is to get away from the danger. The firearm is a tool to facilitate getting away from the danger.
hmm.
And if you look at this video, that's a really good example, I think.
Correct.
Offense and then defense.
Correct.
Defense is break contact. Um, and that's that lizard brain, which is threat, break contact.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't fully developed this. I could be talking completely out of my ass, but that's where we see that we call that fight or flight response, but it's more complicated than that. Um, but generally, that defensive move is to, even if it's aggressive in order to break contact. Where the offensive is to dominate and maintain contact until you get what it is you came for.
Yeah.
So again, not a fully developed idea. Don't hold me to that.
Makes sense though.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So
So, um, all right. Well, that was some interesting. It was interesting to me. Hopefully, it was interesting to gun websites. Joseph dropped off at some point, but hopefully he'll come back and listen. Thank you to Derek and Darren and Joseph and Mech Schlosser Schlosser.
I think that's Max Skyline Firearms.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Okay.
I think it's Max.
Is
Uh,
his last name Schlosser?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, Derek says dirty kid constantly doing wild things all the time. Man, I like having fun, but like I can't watch this type of stuff. It just this irritates me. So,
Well,
um,
there's no purpose to it. Like there's if there was a reason for it, if there was like
yeah,
some high level, but you get into this of like you're doing something incredibly risky, and the benefit isn't it's not matching, it's not there,
yeah,
and it doesn't make sense.
yeah.
But
I didn't notice that Derek had brought up uh,
Ken Master,
Master Ken,
yeah.
and Master Ken is hilarious at driving home the point of rehearsed defensive responses. um, yeah, I mean, he just like it. It. Unlike Dirty Kid, there seems to be a point behind it, which is parody of something that is taught that is totally um, dangerous. And yeah,
So
Hop and Brass Facts. Might as well bring it up since Derek brought it up. Talk about autism. Hop and Brass Facts, like peak autism.
so the people that I follow on YouTube that are gun people are nobody. Uh,
Nobody.
so
Yeah.
you guys are like fucking saying shit. I have no fucking clue what the fuck
Yeah.
you guys are talking about.
I go back and forth with some of these YouTubers because they put in a lot of work to try to evaluate certain tools, you know? Like I need to hear from somebody who has put 10,000 rounds through a gun just so I know what kinds of things can go wrong because I'm not going to do that. I don't have the budget to put 10,000 rounds through a gun. But when we're getting into the intricacies of how to build your own flashlight for night vision, like okay, we're just masturbating now. Like there's there's no reason for this other than just to stoke your own. Like these are the guys who got into model trains in the 50s, but now we have something way cooler than modern trains, which is shooting under night vision.
Yeah,
But if they were doing model trains, you'd go in their basement and it would be just wall to wall.
and disregard the fact that I just spent $10,000 on some nods,
Yeah.
and I don't have $50 for a flashlight. So let me make my own flashlight to work with my $10,000 fucking nods.
Yeah.
Uh, so
So, um, but like the issue with these autism type people is they just go down a rabbit hole that of scenarios that you will never find yourself in. And
correct.
another one that just came out with this crazy video was not Dirty Kid but Dirty Civilian. They're starting an entire TV series around the urban prepper and winning these like insurrections,
Hilarious.
and it's basically Walking Dead with that with with less CGI. So
It's funny.
I don't find that stuff very entertaining because I get bored with it really quickly. But anyway, since Derek brought it up, yes, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for the comments. Thanks for disagreeing with us or bringing up counterpoints. Um, we have May 2nd. We have our defensive handgun class, and we have concealed carry classes coming up. What else? Maker's Match,
Makers match. That's gonna be May 16th.
May 16th.
Yep. So if you guys want to travel
Is,
and go
is
shoot
that in Michigan or in
Michigan,
Pennsylvania?
Michigan.
Michigan.
Yep.
Okay.
So go check that
Um,
shit out. Other than that, that's about it.
is that makersmatch.com?
Or gfenational.com.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. If you ever get a chance to do Maker's Match, make it happen because it is interesting. It's really, really interesting to watch, even if you don't participate. I learned a lot, not just about guns, but about people.
Humans.
There's a whole different breed of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So fight people that disagree with you, not thank them. How could I not thank you for sharpening the blade, Max? Um, so yes, thanks to everybody for watching. Gunsforeveryone.com, gfenational.com. Donate, spread the love, support the work,
Buy our merch.
buy the merch. We got new merch.
Yeah, we've had new merch, dude. You don't you follow all of these YouTubers and you don't even follow your own YouTube.
There's a psychological reason for this, though.
Yeah.
There's
Uh,
it's like looking in a mirror. I hate looking in mirrors.
yeah.
And like
Yeah, but
looking at our own stuff feels like I'm looking in a mirror
yeah.
and I
So
hate it.
yeah, we've got merch. I'll have some more shit out, but at any rate, appreciate you guys. See you guys in 2 weeks, maybe.
2 weeks.
Peace.
Peace.